Okay, this is session 2 of World of Dungeons Seclusium. When we last saw the party, they were on their way to Dauphin, which is the ancestral home of Vorus's family, the Malbrosias. The very last thing we saw was early in the day, and we saw the carriage. I'll remind you, the carriage being the coachman of the carriage was a man whose mouth is sewn shut. But we saw the carriage going along a path, and eventually the sun was like the sky became dark as if something was blocking the sun. And Moon Poison, you looked outside your little carriage window and saw a sort of like large leathery wing, the shadow of a large leathery wing, right, stretching out on either side of the. Am I roboting? I'm just looking at the note right now.
It looks like it's just my connection.
Okay, right. Do I sound okay to everybody else, or? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Okay. So we saw this like large leathery, the shadow of these like two large wings like over the carriage, right? Before we continue with that scene, do we have any housekeeping that we need to do in terms of character advancement or any questions about anything at all? Okie doke. In that case, Moon Poison, what do you do?
So, guys, there's a chance I made not a friend, but acquaintance with a dragon recently, and I think it might be up there. And she points at the ceiling, and then she's all sheepish and just kind of like, but yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong. People call me crazy sometimes.
And I imagine that my dragonling is probably aware of this other dragon.
Possibly, yeah, maybe. Maybe it's sleeping at this precise moment. Who knows how it might react.
I think that I will risk putting my head out the window to get a better look at this thing.
Whatever it is, it's passed overhead. You might even see like some kind of vague, large, dark shape kind of disappearing into the clouds a little bit.
Okay.
But the shadow is gone. It's passed.
And I look back at the floor at my little small dragon sleeping there. I'm like, oh, that'll be fun one day.
Yeah, who knows what that was? That flew overhead, but it passed. So.
Vorus, are dragons common here?
The answer is no.
Yeah, I'm like, probably not.
And Moon Poison, what are you expecting it to do to us?
Well, I don't know. It's like we had a deal, and I think he thought we had a deal, but I don't know. I didn't really honor the bargain, so it's really up in the air, so to speak.
He probably didn't take it seriously because you're just some little dumpster gnome. I mean, I wouldn't take deals with you very seriously.
Neither would I, to be completely honest. But he was pretty mad, and I ran away.
So is there anything else you want to tell us about this dragon?
Yeah, he's trying. He he really wants to become invisible or something. I'm not entirely sure. He had a different deal with a dream demon, and that dream demon didn't honor that deal. I think he was probably more mad about that than the deal he made with me. But I don't know. Maybe he's trying to find me. But just warning you. If something happens, it's probably my fault.
You sure seem to be hunted by lots of things. We should probably just give you up to one of them eventually.
Well, but aren't we friends?
That's questionable.
And
How do we know each other?
the journey goes on, mostly uneventfully. After several days on the road, you eventually reach a large, or like a stone bridge that kind of like passes over a river, right? And this bridge, passing over this bridge, means you are now officially in the lands uh, owned by the Malbrosha family, the lands that are collectively called Dauphin. And as the carriage passes over this bridge, and as you go a little bit into the lands of Dauphin, the village is up ahead. You'll be getting near the village. And a little further from that, from the village, there is a sort of the path goes up like a hill. There's like a little rocky promontory, and up on top of that hill is where the house and things are all situated, right? But at present, you're kind of going through these lands a little bit, and you're approaching the village. As you enter Dauphin, as you go into these lands, you each get the distinct feeling in some way that almost like the rest of the world is slipping away a little bit. Like there's nothing but this place. There's nothing but Dauphin. It's probably a pretty subtle thing. I don't think you turn your head and you see a vast black inky void behind you. It's nothing so strong as that. But you have a sense of like the world slipping away in some sense. Like there's nothing but Dauphin. And you began feeling that way as soon as you crossed that bridge. I'd like to just go across the table and ask each of you to tell me like what your character perceives makes them feel that way. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I think what makes Boris feel that way is that he starts recognizing the landmarks, and he starts in his head imagining himself like going into these buildings and being in that window, and even though he has like no interest in going to some of these places, he's just very interested in being a part of the scene and kind of using these structures in a way.
Interesting. So it's almost like you are I'm not sure I follow. Like it's like you are.
Yeah, so it's basically like he sees like this one building in the village that has like a kind of a rooftop terrace of sorts. Maybe it's an inn or something, and he sees himself sitting at the table there and drinking a drink, and then he looks over to the stables and sees himself hitching a horse, and it's not just that he sees these places, but it's like he sees himself on a track through these places. Like suddenly he's like got this sort of this schedule of sorts through this village, and it's like his life is here in a way.
Interesting. And that seems like it seems like a very distinct thing that you would feel, considering this is like your, this is part of your ancestral home. Very interesting. Asmodeus, what about you?
Is this a mundane thing, or would I have felt something magical?
Could be either or both, however you want to perceive it.
I think that it is like a seasonal change, like from one side of the bridge to the other. It feels like a different season here. Like where, I don't know where we're coming from, like what season it was.
Maybe it was like late summer, and now it's like kind of like the trees are dying, like the leaves are dying. And
yeah, like the leaves are dropping on this side of the bridge.
Yeah, it's all kind of like orange. I like that. Good. Interesting. What about you, Kayla?
Well, once we crossed the bridge, it was almost like everything behind me, my memories of everything back there was grayer. And everything here was more crystal clear and had more color, more intense color to it. So more like everything behind us is just as a faded memory, maybe. But this is where everything is real.
Oh, interesting. I like that. Moonpoison, what about you?
Well, I think, like, the quality of light changes, also to, like, a very interesting degree. Like, crossing over the bridge, like, it's as if, it's a partial eclipse, but all the time. So it's just like this hazier, dimmer sort of light coming from the sun. And the shadows that are cast seem less like there. Like the shadows kind of blend in with the actual light itself. So there's almost a lack of shadows themselves. So it's a really strange sort of feeling of being in like almost a fairyland in a sort of way.
Good. I'm going to roll the die of fate real quickly, just to figure out what the disposition of being in the village is. It's a 6. It's good. I think on the day you arrive, it's early in the day, probably like around, we'll say noonish. And people in the village are going about their business as the carriage comes through. It doesn't take very long, though, before people start to notice that the carriage bears the mark of House Malbroja, and a number of people like come out into the square as the carriage enters. So the carriage kind of like goes into the square where they have like a big statue of some Malbroja, some man who, you might know the story, who knows, for us, but there's a statue there, and I think it's kind of like it's like the only like really nice space. There's like little manicured flower beds around it and things like that. And the carriage moves into the square, and lots of people begin to gather in the square. They are very like conspicuously like keeping their distance from the carriage and kind of like keeping their eyes averted. But the carriage will stop. It's customary to stop, and it'll they may have to like rest the horses for a bit or whatever before they make the trek up the hill, to get to the house. I'll just go around the table and find out what each of you are doing. Stretching your legs, and what else are you getting up to? Osmodeus. The village has all the sorts of things you might expect to find in a small village.
Right. So I think I kind of ask, like, is this the kind of place where we need to secure our own housing, or should we expect to stay at your home? Aries.
Well, I mean, you should probably secure your own housing.
Then I will be about that. And I just strike off into the village.
How big a village is this?
I would say it's pretty small. Probably fewer than like 300 people, 400 people. So pretty small.
So it probably has. So it would have, I don't know, a smithy.
Yeah, it has a smith. It has
tavern, inn, whatever.
It has a stable. It has a small inn. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Are there
If
any?
you want to name the inn, Osmodeus, that'd be great. So, Caleb, what do you get up to?
So I think Keelan would first look around to see if there happen to be any temples or shrines or anything like that. Try and figure out which god the locals pray to or respect more.
Indeed. That sounds good. All right. And what about you, Moon Poison?
I'm probably going to go wherever day laborers congregate and alcohol is served. To try to find try to get some information about local politics, what's going on, and
sounds like you might be heading with Osmodeus then to the inn.
Probably, yeah.
And what about you, Horace?
So I'm gonna assume that my horse has been tied to the cart this entire time.
Yeah, I mean, you maybe. I mean, yeah, they probably, yeah, like it just follows along. Or you can even probably sometimes you were riding it too, right? Just to give everybody some space.
Yeah. So I think what I do is I hop on the saddle and I've got a hood pulled over my head. And I am wondering if I still have Kalen's cloak. And yeah, I'm just going to ride to the stables.
Okay, good. The cloak and hood, is that to prevent people from knowing you're a Malbrosia?
For now, I think I want to keep it under wraps a bit.
Okay, so it sounds good because you are identical twins with your brother Vorgan, right? And there's a really strong chance that people in the village would just think you're him, right? So if you don't make an effort,
yeah.
Whereas Kalen was wearing your cloak, right? Unless you asked for it back. Okay. So I guess we'll find out what the village thinks about you.
So terrific. First things first, Moon Poison. As soon as the first villager sees you get out of the carriage, they immediately begin like whispering and hubbing, and they're like, "Is that a goblin? I think it's a goblin. Oh my gosh, there haven't been goblins in these lands for years and years." And they're all like hubbub, right? And they're even like keeping their distance from you, right? Like, and I think even one old woman is like, "Please don't curse me, goblin." And she like steps away, right? Like in fright. How do you respond to all that?
I sort of whisper to Osmodeus. I'm just like, now this could come into our advantage if we are to let me lead when we enter the inn, and I feel like we can run this town in a few days.
All right, then. I've never heard of a single goblin being able to control an entire populace, but I'm interested to see it try.
Well, I am a gnome, and I have I think I have what it takes. So yes, thank you for your cooperation.
Should I act subservient to you?
Oh, of course, you are my eunuch, my ward, my manservant. Yes, of course. This is it's all part of a grand plan. I am a I'm a famous minstrel from the great cities who is just coming into town for a little bit of solitude and but I'm sure I'm sure folks will be excited to see me.
If you were coming in the Malbrosia coach, maybe you were being fetched as like entertainment for the folks who live up in the house.
A famous goblin bard. Now that is a novel.
Well, these folks don't know anything. They they haven't been to the Yellow City. They don't know what's going on beyond these lands. They probably, well, they might not even care, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see, and we will try our very best. And yes, yes, this place seems like a safe place for me to work my magic.
Indeed. Osmodeus, what's the name of the little inn?
Like I'm not sure. I always like to name the inns after some feature of the town, but I can't I haven't like figured out what the town is about yet.
We shall call it the Golden Maiden. The Golden Maiden is clean, tidy, not very fancy. It's mostly just a bar, a long table, and some space in the back behind the bar, a little hallway where a couple of rooms are. Not much to look at, in fact. But as you enter, there might be a couple of old folks, there having a drink already, and the barmaid is there. And as soon as you both step in, they like, oh, like, goblin, like, oh, they're just like, so they can't believe, like, just looking at you, Moon Poison, they're just like, so like, like, oh my God. And there's like an old man at the end of the table who's like, I remember when goblins were in these lands, and he's kind of goes off about discoursing about goblins, right, that used to inhabit these lands.
Yeah, and I like have my staff, and I just like kind of like bang it a couple times on the floorboards as we come in, and Moon Poison is in front of me. And I look at them all and I say, "See here now, your metallic mistress has returned to you."
Yes.
And they all kind of like give each other a strange look, like they're not quite sure what you're going about.
And then I like bang on the sign, Golden Maiden or whatever.
Oh, right, because and Moon Poison's skin is yellow, right?
Exactly.
Indeed. And the barmaid, she kind of like, she leans forward and says, "You're the Golden Maiden?"
The one and only, the Golden Maiden, the very same. And I am here. I've been traveling around the world for the past 200 years, and here I have come back to see you all once again. I am a traveling minstrel, and I am very famous in other cities of the world. I have played for kings and queens and regents. And here I am to play for the Malbrosias themselves in a veritable feast. And so I like to bring myself down to the common folk because I have humble beginnings. I grew up on the streets, but then now here I am. I am stronger and I am more vibrant than I was when I was first here, when this bar was built. So, yes, it is I, the Golden Maiden herself.
Roll plus charisma, please. The stakes, of course, are you are found out as a charlatan.
Oh, well, that's a 10.
A 10. The barmaid says, well, your skin is a sort of yellowish gold color, I suppose. I thought a maiden would be somehow taller and more fair, but and she's like, but I certainly, well, if you are the golden maiden, I could see why. I could see why the masters have summoned you. Here, a drink, and she pours like a, I think she has like a cask of like fine, golden wine, and hands you a glass.
Well, yes, of course. I tend to exaggerate when you have a lot of fame. A lot of people have different ideas. You know how rumors spread, and if you're world famous like I am, well, then rumors spread in various weird ways. So thank you for recognizing my beauty. And so I take the wine, and I raise, and I get up on top of the bar, like I'm just standing on top of the bar with the glass of wine in my hand, and I'm just saying, "To Dauphin, to the common folk."
I'm gonna cut over the stables. So you are going to water your horse, I assume, and maybe even store it there because you probably won't need it on the trek up to the house, right?
Yeah.
Horse.
I think I've probably got like the brush, and I'm brushing the horse a bit as it's like drinking some water.
And as I recall, in your youth you had an affair with the stable boy of Servant.
Yeah,
right?
It didn't go well.
Indeed. But you said his mother still lives there, right?
Yeah, and he's probably looking over at the house. Does he? Do I see anything in like the windows or anything?
Yeah, I think you probably, like, as you're there, I think there's like a stable boy there who takes your horse and stuff, and you're brushing him, and he's helping you or whatever. And you do, yeah, you see, like, in the window, you see some motion, some movement. There's someone there.
Yeah, I think I pay the stable boy, but I go to the porch of this little house, if it has a porch. I go to the door, and I think I hesitate a bit, but then I knock.
And she opens the door. It's the woman. Did we ever name your lover?
I don't think. If we did, I didn't note it.
I don't think we did. Let's make some notes here. Let's see. I think your lover's name was. We'll name him. Blah blah blah. I hate thinking of names.
Elcarius.
That's a very grand name for a stable boy. Elcarius. And his mother will be. His mother. Sorry, notes.
Willa.
The door. And do you identify yourself? It's probably been some years since she's seen you.
Yeah. What was her name again?
Willa.
Yeah, I think I pull the hood off, and I'm like, Willa, it's good to see you. And does she look well?
She looks, I don't know. She's kind of, I think she's probably like kind of got like kind of a weathered, look, but she's hale. She's healthy-ish. I mean, maybe a little, probably a little like, not super well fed, kind of rangy, I guess, a little bit. Gray hair tied back, a little kind of a curve in her back from basically like her labors over the years, right? And she looks up at you, and it takes a moment, like she's trying to figure out who you are. You've got this ratty cloak on, so that kind of throws her for a minute. But eventually well, I'm gonna roll a die of fate. A 1. She sees you, and as it dawns on her who you are, the color drains from her face, and she collapses to her hands and knees right in front of you, and begins to just begins to wail, like please, please, please don't take me up to the house. I'm so sorry. Like, please, I beg of you, sir. I beg of you. Just a blubbering, wailing mess.
And I look around, and crouch down, and I think I pull out I pull out some coin, and I'm like, I think I give her like 100 coin.
100 coin.
Yeah.
She, as you I guess, like, she's not like, she's kind of like literally like down on her hands and knees, like kind of like cowering. Do you just like try to lift her up and press the money into her hand, or what?
Yeah. Yeah. And I say, her name's Gletta, right?
Willa.
Where do I get Gletta from? Willa. I'm like, Willa, I know that I never properly made amends for Eli, but I hope that this helps. And that's when I like press the gold into her hands.
Yeah, it's the silver we have. If you press the silver into her hands, she will.
Silver.
She'll just look at it like she won't know what to do, and almost like she thinks it must be some kind of trick. And she says, "Am I free to go?"
Yes.
And she slowly backs up into her house and just like closes the door.
And I kind of stand there for a moment and look at my boots a bit, and then I pull the hood on and walk away.
Let's come over to Kaylin. Kaylin, there's a shrine. It's essentially just a little small building with a. I think there's probably like there's probably some kind of like universal symbol for like worship, right? It's a sort of universal shrine where anybody would come. These are very common in small towns. Where you can go and just it's a place of peace. It's a place of there are candles and things like that, and an altar, so that you can give, so you can worship and commune with whatever god you worship, basically, right? And just a common sort of like holy shrine. And yeah, you can find that place. What do you do?
So how large is it on the inside?
Quite small. It would be basically just like if you step inside, it would be like maybe 2 rows of prayer plinths, maybe like 6 total, and then a little altar space. I mean, it's like the size of like a storage shed, really tiny.
Okay, so I think he would go. Is anybody else in here?
Um, yes,
And what time of day is it?
it's like the middle of the day. It's like
Okay.
Just sun's high.
Okay, so I think he would enter, take off his boots. I'm assuming we're wearing boots. He'll take off his boots and walk barefoot up to the. You said there was an altar sort of area.
Yeah, just like a little like kind of like altar space.
And get down on his knees and kiss the altar.
Mm-hmm.
And then he will actually get up and walk out into the front of the building. It's the middle of the day, I think. Next to where he put his boots, he'll take off his whatever he's wearing, like a shirt or a tunic, so that he's bare chested, and go out into in front of the shrine, and he'll start doing. He'll start dancing. Because for Freya, the rituals that they would usually do, they don't require anybody else to attend, but it will be a dance. And so since Freya, they're the god of life, then this is going to be symbolic of, since it's midday, being in the prime of your life. So it'll be a lot of activity, a lot of, very rapid gestures, some perhaps being violent, some being sexual, and he'll probably be moving around in sort of a square in front of the shrine, staying within a sort of a space of probably, I don't know, 20 feet by 20 feet as he does this. It's not particularly trying to draw attention to anybody. This is really just for him, between him and Freya.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll the die of fate, see what the response is like to this. It's a 4. I think so. You're doing your dance. Hold that thought. I'm going to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll think about it for a minute. That's a very unusual circumstance. So back at the Golden Maiden, I mean, you have people's attention. If nothing else, I think maybe some of them might believe this story. I think most of them are just like bemused, or if nothing else, like the humdrum of their day is the humdrum of their day is shaken up by this amusing situation with the two of you, right? And so people are being a little more, they're being pretty chatty. They're being like kind of, they might ask you, they ask lots of questions about like, where have you traveled, and lots of like goblin things too, like lots of goblin based superstitions, and like confirming if they're true or not, right? That kind of thing. Like, is it true that if a goblin drops from a high building, they just bounce, they bounce like tree rubber, like that kind of thing, right? As you're getting settled into the situation, Asmodeus, what do you do?
I'm just trying to like bolster our credibility in this situation in any way that I can, so that like,
Sure.
So that they'll buy it more than they have already, a little bit more hook, line, and sinkers. So maybe we can get like free accommodation here for the duration.
I think that's settled. Yeah, you can definitely stay there.
And so like to that end, I'm just like, anytime people ask questions that like, seem maybe slightly beyond the realm of possibility about goblins or whatever, I'll elaborate the lie, and if I can, I'll like try and do some subtle magic to make it seem legitimate.
Nice. Yeah, that's yes, done. Then what?
After like we have all this settled, I'll kind of look to Moon Poison and see if she's going to try and gather information here, if we're going to try and meet with the rest of our group.
So yeah, I really want to gather some information about just in general the atmosphere amongst the day laborers and the serfs, the folks who are owned by the Malbrosias. Because,
Literally
like,
owned. Yeah.
yeah, I've heard Voris kind of talk about it here and there, not too much, but enough to realize that his family is bad news bears, and I'm just really curious about the conditions that the workers are in, and
Yeah.
and how I might be able to help them out.
Yeah, I'll give you both. I'll give you both charisma rolls, and then based on how the rolls will go, I'll answer some questions for you. So you can both roll.
Do we have a room?
Oh, I'll get you one. Hold on. Or I have one. I didn't thank you. Entirely glad monster.
Okay. We have the one from last time too, if that's.
Oh, I don't care one way or the other. Whatever you guys want. So, what was your result? When was it?
I got 13.
13. Nice. And did you roll yet?
I got 11.
11. Okay. So I'll give you 3 moon poison and 2 for you, Osmodeus, and you guys can kind of take them in turn in case you want to ask like follow-ups on the other ones. So like this will kind of represent the general sort of like conversation that you're getting from the people there in the inn. Right? So, and I'll answer truthfully, if not necessarily completely. So first question, moon poison. What do you got?
Yeah, I guess, like, I mean, like, what is the basic morale here? Like, how, like, just like temperature check. Like, how are the folks faring? Like, what is their sort of, I guess, just baseline?
Whenever you're talking about like your travels or goblins or whatever, whenever you guys are talking about the outside world, they're very happy and they're really like excited to engage with that. Whenever the conversation turns to either the Dauphin, they call it the Dauphin Lodge, or the Malbrosias, definite like mood shift, right? Like they get like a little nervous, they look away, a couple of them even tremble a little bit, and then you can change the conversation back to happier subjects. So
Right.
yeah, that's the answer. And Osmodeus, do you have a question?
Why don't these people leave?
Let's RP that. So I think there's like a man who's been there. The old man who's been there for a long time, right? And at some point during the merrymaking, you guys, you ask him that. You just pose that question, like, what do you say?
Yeah, I think we've just talked about something about the lodge, and he seems really upset about it. Like he would curse into his beard about it. And I'm just like, have you ever traveled from here?
And he says, well, I mean, where would I go? This is my home.
Seems like a man could do better for himself if he left. Why don't you leave?
There's been talk of leaving before, but just something always comes up. And in any case, I'm a creature of habit. The devil,
Something always comes up.
I've lasted this long. Servitor is my home. I was born here. My family was born here, and I don't have no grand ambitions. Not like you, and not like you and the Golden Maiden. That it?
I mean, if that's all that anyone can ever say is they don't leave because they don't leave.
That's the answer. Yeah, it's completely circular.
Oh.
It's almost like some of them, it's a little bit different. It's like a sort of like you bring up the notion of them, well, why don't you just leave? And they like, and something like dawns on them like, yeah, why don't I just leave? and then they get a little nervous and they like leave you. They go do something else.
So it's not that like some of them have tried this leaving plan before and been dragged back kicking and screaming. It's that none of them have considered leaving.
None of them have left. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm going to cut away. Voris, all right, well, so you had that encounter with Willa, and you didn't get the impression that she kind of understood what was going on, right? She was just scared of you.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm walking back. I think I'm going to I'm probably trying to make my way, to the others, and I think I might
maybe you run into Kalen doing his dance.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I think I see Kalen doing his dance. And he said he's doing it outside because he saw the graving inside that says, "None of them will save you," which I put in the chat.
Wait, what? I'm confused. I know.
There was graffiti on the altar, is what I was gathering, or somewhere in the shrine, that none of the gods will save you.
Oh, yeah. If that was on there, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I see him dancing, and I join him, and I walk up and say, "That dance is supposed to do something?"
It's an act of faith. It's a reenactment. It's expressing the joy of life, the connection with life. It's reminding of what life is and can be. What more does it need to do? Did you not like it?
It was just that I thought you had some sort of power, and that's why you did all these things.
And he looks at you a little strangely, because you've seen Freya's magic work through me. Why? Where is this coming from?
I just don't get why you're wasting your time. I mean, if you can do something that will help us, then you should do that.
Are you saying you need help? Is the great Voris asking the lowly Kalen for help? I think at this point he'll pull back his hair and tie it up.
And I lean in and I just say, I don't think you understand how much trouble we're going to be going into here. And I'm just saying that you should just take it a little more seriously and not be dancing and attracting attention.
Maybe my dancing, dude, is the way I try and figure out what's going on around this place. To watch the people's reactions.
And then you hear a voice say, coming from around a corner, you hear someone say, "I quite enjoyed the dance." And you'll see, it looks like Voris coming around the corner. It is your brother Vorgan, Voris, but they are dead ringers for one another. I'd like to know, Voris, in what small ways are you able to tell each other apart? What about your bearing or the way you dress makes you different?
His mustache isn't curled like mine is.
Okay,
do you have more scars than he does?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't gone out in the world like you have, right? Not as much. So I think he's dressed in like a fine leather, kind of like leather doublet, right? And good solid boots, very polished to a shine. And he steps up to you. He steps right up to you, Caitlin, like right up, like in your space, and says, "Very, very much. and he kind of like just like puts his hand on the back of your neck and like just begins to like stroke your neck and your ear, like he's got all the business in the world of doing that. And says, and he looks at you, Voris, and says, "You and I were always about collecting pets. This is a good one, brother."
And I think Kaelin will pull, what was his name? Vorgas?
Vorgan.
Vorgan. Pull Vorgan's head in and give him a kiss, and then push him back and say, "I'm nobody's pet."
And he kind of like smiles after you kiss him, and he smiles and he says, "We'll see about that." And he looks at you and says, "I've come to collect you, Tavoris."
And I think I give a really serious look to Kaylin, and then I'll just start following Borgen.
Indeed. Back at the inn, give me another question there, Moon Poison. Oh, let's take a break, actually. As we take a break, though, let's just take 5 minutes. Voris, I want you to think about your memories of your mother. I want to know everything you remember about your mother. Okay?
Okay.
you remind me again what your issue is with your brother?
It's not just him, it's him and my other brothers. I had an affair with the stable boy, in which I actually cared for him and wasn't just using him. And they caught wind of that and decided to draw and quarter in.
And do we assume the rest of us know this? Would you have talked about this?
I don't think that he talked about this. Yeah. Probably because within his family, that sort of made him weak. And that's probably why he isn't included in. That's probably one of the reasons why he's not included in the more culty stuff that his family does. Is because of that.
Well, maybe that's not a bad thing.
Maybe.
What if people use the awareness skill for? Just getting bearings on your surroundings, or anything deeper or different than that?
I think it's just like, well, like all skills are sort of, just ways to avoid failing. So you avoid failing when doing like wisdom checks, any sort of like, yeah. I think
What are we
mostly
talking
the awareness skill.
I was asking how people had used awareness in the past.
about? It's a skill, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just means you can't get a miss on a roll whenever you are doing something that could reasonably qualify as awareness. so like if there's a chance that you might get jumped or might not, or you might if you're looking out for traps or something like that, right? So back at the inn, back at the Golden Maiden, let's get these questions wrapped up here. All right, so let's keep going. Human poison.
So yeah, I'm like, they seem obsessed with goblins when talking to me, and though I don't consider myself a goblin, I can see why other people would, um, would mistake my Muppety form for a goblin. And considering I don't look like a typical gnome, because, my folk are kind of goblin gnome interbred. And so, yeah, I guess so. I want to know, like, what their connection to goblins are, because I don't know that my folk come from this area, and I just kind of want to find out, I've seen, like in the carriage there was a goblin skull, right? Like, just like as the lamp, and so I'm just like, I am kind of curious what exactly is going on here.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe the barmaid tells you. She says, "Oh, they say that the Malbrosias have owned everything and everyone within their borders for centuries, and well, there's word that there used to be goblins in these lands, that they were servants of the Malbrosias."
But what happened to them? I haven't seen a single one, and you say that y'all haven't seen them in Years and years.
Who can say? There are lots of stories. It could just be, well, before today, I would have said it's just fairy tales. That there's no such thing as your kind, but I am clearly mistaken. I don't know. I've heard lots of different things, but there is evidence of fairy folk, of goblin kind in these lands. If you look in the woods, in the places around Dauphin, you'll see it.
Are there any of my kind living in the woods? I mean,
I wouldn't know anything about that. The old folks say so, but they're just tales to frighten children. What's your final question, Osmodeus?
What is the alleged cult getting up to? See if anyone knows anything about that.
How do you... an interesting question. That's okay. So out of character, like you're trying to figure out like what the supposed cult or magic users or whatever is going on in these lands. Like what are they doing right now? That's very interesting. I think the answer you're going to get always goes back to like if you try to like ask about strange activity in Dauphin, if you try to ask about the brothers, Malbrosia, if you try to do anything like that, and what they're getting, and ask about what they're getting up to, they'll always get a little frightened, and then they'll kind of just whisper something along the lines of, well, they have lots of peculiar enthusiasms.
Such as? That's always the follow-up. Such as?
Well, and then they will... The main thing you're going to get in terms of like interesting bits of information about something arcane or magical that might be going on up the hill, the main thing you're going to get is there's a cave system. There's a cave system that you can reach from up there, and all sorts of talk about something going on in those caves. So, but they will always like say, they will always talk about peculiar enthusiasms or very elevated tastes, that kind of thing. Vorgan says, was it just the two of you who came?
There are others.
Well, go gather them up. I'm not making another trip down here.
And so I guess we do.
Human Poison has one more question.
Well, maybe we can all be present for the final question then.
Do you just try to go find them?
Yeah. I think I think I probably like motion to Kaylin to come with me. And not stay with my brother.
Well, Kalen has to get his things anyway, so he's going to go grab his boots and your cloak, and make sure to prominently put that on over as once he cools off, and puts on his tunic and the cloak on top, and then he'll probably.
Yeah, so they're at the inn, right? So I think we walk up to the Golden Maiden, and The Golden Maiden, does it have like a sign or anything?
Yeah. Because earlier Asmodeus said he kind of like tapped the sign.
I think as I'm walking by the sign, I like trail my finger under the bottom of it where there are all these notches under the bottom. And those notches are visitors who were, attacked by my family when they were staying at the
inn. Interesting.
Just keeping count.
Final question.
So yeah, I want to know is like my final question is there a character, is there a person in town that is kind of the voice of dissent? In any way, shape, or form?
No.
Okay. All right.
There is no dissent. He's a notch on the door.
Really?
Assuming you're not doing as much to hide your identity at this point, Voris, when you step inside the Golden Maiden, everybody, like the people at the table, the barmaid, they will all just get like really like super, super nervous. Everybody takes their hands and puts their hands like on the table in front of them, palm facing up. The barmaid does the same thing. They put their hands, palms facing up, and they just like look down, like they don't see you, right?
Right. And of course I act like I don't even see them doing this. So I just walk up to the bar and kind of tap the counter, and I think a mug of ale is slid forward, and I take it and start drinking it, and I think I go to the others and I'm like, "Are you ready to go?"
Do they always do this whenever you enter a room here, Voris?
You really do know how to stop a party.
Oh, this isn't a party.
Well, it was.
We were having fun.
Oh, I'm pretty sure if there was a party going on, there would be more blood around here.
You got weird parties, man. I'm just saying.
Well, stop. Go on, get your stuff ready, and we must make our way up the hill.
Indeed.
Goodbye, common folk. We'll see you next time.
There's no response. Everybody is just completely quiet. They're just trying to almost like they're trying to pretend like you're not there. And you get there. And Voris came down in a chariot pulled by a large mutilated man. This man is not wearing much, kind of like a simple loincloth situation. His body is heavily scarred. His mouth has been sewn closed, and his eyes look like the flesh has been melted. So it just looks like melted candle wax where his eyes should be. And he's got decorative spikes in his skull and his shaven head, kind of sticking out. He looks like a strange, I don't know, it gives you the impression of a porcupine or something, right? And he's all bit and bridled up, right, to pull the chariot. And Voris sees Moon Poison and says, "Is that a goblin?"
know, Goblin. I'm a run-of-the-mill dumpster gnome from Beladosk.
I wouldn't say that too loudly.
And then he kind of steps over to you, Moon Poison, and says, he looks down at you and says, "You are a goblin." He looks at you, Vorus, and says, "Consorting with goblins now, are we, brother?"
Consort with this thing? No.
Ah, then the goblin is your servant. Very good.
What? No, of course not.
Shut up, goblin! He yells at you, snaps at you.
It's not a goblin.
Voris, I thought your family was educated. I'm really not understanding this. They don't know the difference between goblins and gnomes?
I'm looking at the man who is supposed to pull the chariot, and
The mutilated man.
Yeah, I'm waving my hand in front of him. I'm like, how does he know where to go?
He goes where I tell him.
Must be terribly slow, a man pulling a chariot with another man in the chariot.
But economical. Much easier to take care of him than a horse.
Well, I don't know. How do you feed him? How did you bridle him? His mouth is sewn shut.
And he's just ignoring you. He's just eyes fixed on Moon Poison. And says, "This is going to be quite controversial, brother. Bringing a goblin up to the house."
Again, I'm not a goblin.
Silence!
No, fuck
You
you.
will speak when spoken to, goblin. Vorus, in what capacity does this goblin serve you?
Oh, I mainly just use her because she knows some useful magic and stuff, but that's
Goblin
all,
magic.
really.
Ancient magic, very powerful. That is wise, brother, very wise. Well, this is an interesting bunch. Why have you come back to Dauphin?
Well, you know that I've never been included in the family activities, not since I was a boy, and all of you decided that I didn't have a place.
Right. Well, we best be off. And he turns, and he gets in his chariot, being pulled by this guy, and says,
Is this guy? This is Vorgan, right?
"This is Vorkan." Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He gets in the chariot, and
I think I tell him, don't think that I've forgotten anything from our youth, Vorgan.
he kind of gives you a sideways glance and says, "The others will be delighted to see you, and you can go get your carriage, and he'll go off ahead of you." And yeah, and he just yanks on the reins, and the person begins pulling him directly out. He keeps up a pretty good pace.
He does keep up a good pace, so
Decent pace, yeah.
yeah. And I'm watching this with an intense curiosity, because he must be there is something more to this man. A human being could not do what he is doing.
He's a very big guy. He's also running barefoot, interestingly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so heading up to Dauphin, up to the lodge. Tell me about your mother. What do you remember about her for us?
She had really long hair. I think it was long, platinum hair, all the way down almost to the floor. And it wasn't a law or anything, but if anyone outside the family touched her hair, they had their hands chopped off.
Interesting. How did she die?
I think that she spontaneously combusted.
Okay, good. Like
Yeah.
in the middle of the like just where everybody could see, like it was just a random combustion.
Or did they just like find like charred
Yeah,
remains?
they find her remains, or did everyone see her spontaneously?
I think it was seen, like it was a big deal. And she'd been kind of off that day, but no one was expecting that.
Indeed not. It's not too far up the hill to get to the lodge. It's not far at all. It's not a very high up thing. It probably takes tops like, I don't know, maybe 15-20 minutes, right? I've got a map for you. It's in the folder. It's a very badly drawn map called Defend Grounds. Very badly drawn. If you need a link to the folder, I'll pop it in there for you guys. I'll see for you, Jennifer.
So the cottages are near the lodge. It's not the village.
The village. It actually looks down on the village. You can see in the upper right or the upper right hand corner. There's a little like that's looking down on the village.
And it's a single tomb.
There is a tomb, a tomb, a large crystal spike. It's very large and tall. You see, it's one of the first things you see after you see the lodge. The main house, which I have a picture of in a minute. There's some cottages up against the sort of like up against a higher cliff face. There's a cave system, little cave mouth, and then there's various buildings like stables and things. I'm gonna drop a picture of the lodge itself onto the image board. This is just something I thought was a pretty good representation of what it looked like. It's actually a big manor. It's not a lodge building at all. It's a big, like, multi-wing manor. But there it is. Let's take a look at that. And by the time you get the carriage and take it up, Vorgan's already on his way and already arrived. So you guys are just kind of like, you're kind of going along that little path that goes like right up across the little bridge, where there's a little water feature that goes around the house, and then into the main sort of like courtyard area there. Yeah. So the house is very stately, fairly well kept. There's not much evidence of like servants or anything running around. It's actually pretty quiet. But you'll be dropped off. Someone from the village who tends the horses and things will come up and take care of the carriage, and then maybe the coachman as well will kind of help them do that. They're kind of dismantling everything, unloading all your stuff, that kind of thing. And
are these people disfigured?
No. There's like, I think they have like a kid from the village who helps out with the horses. He looks normal. So, no sign of Vorgan and his mutilated chariot puller as of yet. But your brother Eris comes out to meet you in the courtyard. He looks a little bit like you, Forrest. You're you could maybe guess that you were brothers by looking at the two of you side by side. He's just a little punchier, but still, he's a fairly good-looking guy. Um, Comes out and he says, and he just kind of comes up and gives you a big hug for us. He's like, "Brother, it's so good to see you." And he puts his arms around you.
I push him off, and I'm like, "Oh, you still stink."
That's no way. That's no way to treat your older brother. Come now, tell me about your friends. Who is this? And he turns to Kalen.
Just some scragglers who have been helping me on my errands.
I think Kalen laughs at that and says, "Voris, you always have to play things so funnily." And Kalen will step forward and said, "My name is Kalen. I am a follower of Freya."
A religious man. Fantastic. Well, and then he shakes your hands in a very friendly manner. Hasn't seen Moon Poison yet. He sees Asmodeus. You're a very curious-looking fellow. My name is Aris Malabroja.
Well, Aris, pleasure to meet you, Asmodeus. Traveler, sorcerer, vegetable grower.
Are you also someone that my brother picked up on his travels?
I don't see it quite that way. He seems to suggest at every turn that we are his servants, yet he does not pay us, nor do we follow orders from him.
Why would you pay a servant? How ridiculous. Well, so we have plenty of room here for the three of you. Vorgan tells me that you went and got rooms at the Golden Maiden. Why would you do such a thing? We have plenty of space for the three of you here.
Boris seemed to suggest that we would not be welcome. Is there some reason that he might misunderstand that?
I never said you wouldn't be welcome. I just didn't want you being disposed here if I needed you.
Moon Poison, Aris Malabroja has not seen you yet. Either you're behind someone or you haven't gotten out of the carriage yet or whatever. Do you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I think I get out of the I'm kind of like I'm listening to everything. I'm still in the carriage and I'm just kind of listening to what's going on. And then I just kind of I put on this like air of regality, and I exit the carriage, and I walk right up to Eris, and I say, "Is that his name is Eris?" Or yeah. I walk right up to Eris and I say, "And I am Voris's betrothed, Moon Poison Wolf Crystal, at your service."
And his eyes widen, and he kind of like turns and looks at you, and then looks at you. He's a little stunned at first, and he just laughs and says, "Oh, yes. Vorgan told me about the goblin. A jester, I see. Fantastic. It's good for us to have entertainment when you're on the road. Fine choice. And well, this goblin is a very, very, very jolly specimen, isn't it?"
I don't know. I found her to be almost completely unnoteworthy at all.
That's no way to speak to your fiancé.
I just lean into Kaylin, and I'm like, do you have a bestiary or anything that we could just show the difference between a gnome and a goblin to these people?
Well, Voris, you have really gotten yourself into some very interesting situations.
A lot more interesting than the ones you've gotten into here.
I do all right. I keep myself busy. A lot to do running Dauphin.
Eris, I've heard you're a man of exceptional tastes.
Why, thank you.
Well, I just wonder exactly what the folks mean when they say things like that.
Who was saying such things?
Oh, you know, the little people.
People down in the village?
Here and there.
What a curious thing. The people in the village have very, very strict orders never, ever to speak about us, particularly when we're not present. I find that sort of talk, rumors, and gossip, and backbiting really, really unfortunate. We're going to have to do something about that, I fear.
I see you still have no leadership skills whatsoever.
Oh, your slings and arrows will not hurt me, Voris. As much as you act like you're not happy to see me, I know you are, and I'm happy to see you. We'll deal with gossipy villagers another time. Come on, let's go. Bring your things in. And he just goes into the house.
I think I immediately motion over to one of the servants who are here to help carry things.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the coachman. He grabs your stuff.
Yeah.
I do not follow them in. I'm gonna go try and find that chariot puller guy.
Interesting. Let's just go around the table. I mean, I think basically Aris will leave you to have the run of the place until dinner. He's got, he's got things to attend to until then. So it sounds like Osmodeus is going to go try to find the chariot puller. What about you, Kellen?
Question. Do we think that the chariot puller is being punished, or is this just sort of the way of life? We have no indication.
Yeah, unclear.
Okay. But it didn't seem like the chariot puller was resisting in any way or rebellious, or it was very docile.
Okay. I mean, occasionally, when as you could hear Voris urging him on with like a whip, but otherwise. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then I think Kalen will. I assume they've given us some sort of chambers or something like that, and he'll go get himself cleaned up.
Yeah, there's a wing of the house which are like for guest quarters, and you can be there. If you look in the folder, there's actually a little list of all the different, basically all of the different areas of the house that you might be able to go to, I suppose, or go investigate or look at, and as well as like areas on the grounds, which are just on the map. I've just written them down as well. So you kind of have the run of the place, honestly. I mean, there's no.
Well, if we have the run of the place, then I imagine Kalen might try and find the wine cellar.
Okay. There's not a wine cellar on my list here, but I think if you want to go to the pantries or the larder, I think that's perfectly acceptable.
I mean, I'm not trying to be sneaky about it particularly, so if there's a servant there, I might ask the servant to take me down and show the wines.
Yeah, just wander over there.
Okay.
What about you, Moon Poison?
Oh, I'm gonna snoop around and see if I can find expensive things.
Okay. There are some things. We'll talk about the main receiving hall that you guys enter into in a moment. What about you, Boris?
I think I'm like fingering Lionel's ring on my finger, and I think I'm going to go to I think I'm gonna actually go with Kaylin. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
I was gonna be some I'm gonna find my old room, but it's on our list, so I don't want to.
It's been transformed into something else.
Yeah, it's been reappropriated.
It's a fitness room now.
Exactly, the gym. Awesome. Osmodeus, where do you begin your search for this?
I mean, the stables seem like the most natural place that they might.
Yeah, I think that's fine. This would be like a main area. You probably even run into Vorkin on your way, and he says, "Are you lost, friend?"
No, having a look about.
How old is Osmodeus?
He's middle years with like a black beard.
He says, having a look about, well, there's plenty to see. There are lots of sights, lots of sounds, but nothing over here in the stables.
Well, I was curious about that chariot situation you had there.
Oh, just a little. I like to do a little bit of tinkering. My brother and I have always had the strong urge to, well, collect things, pets, people, something we share. We exercise this desire in different ways.
And you have done some tinkering.
I have indeed. What is your profession, sir? What interest do you have in such things?
Ah, yes, I do not think I've been properly introduced. Osmodeus is my name, and I am traveler, sorcerer, and arcane vegetable grower.
That's very fascinating. Well, all right, if you insist. And he takes you over to the stable. Inside the stable, we will see a number of interesting things. There are horses in stalls, but there are also like people in stalls, large men, very big, like 7 feet tall. Some of them, very wide at the shoulder, right? Oversized, right? Lots of different kinds of like scarification and modification having been done to their bodies. And he says, it's getting a little out of hand, I know. I've been trying to convince Eris to build me another stable for a very, very long time. I'll give it up one day, but man's got to have his hobbies.
Where do you find these people?
Oh, here and there.
I don't know here and there. They must have terrifically gigantic people.
And then he kind of is moving through, and what do you see, Osmodeus? What do you see in the stable that maybe there's one particular, it's not even clear if we should say victim or not. There's one particular person in one of the stalls who looks like a particularly sad, tragic case. What is it about him?
I think all of his digits have been removed, including on his feet, so he can't even properly walk.
He says, well, sometimes they come from the village. Sometimes, they just sort of turn up.
They seem docile.
Hmm.
Why would they subject themselves to this?
Well, I suppose they don't know any better, do they?
Are they? They are men, aren't they?
Hmm. I think so. I'm pretty sure. And then he actually like reaches in and like grabs the genitals of one of them and says, "Yep, this one's definitely a man."
I don't mean a male. I mean, they're biologically human.
Well, before today, I would have said, "Are you crazy? There's only humans in the world." But now, goblins. What a day!
So, do they not have any instinct to flee from pain or torture? Have you put a spell on them?
Well, I can be very persuasive. And then I'm gonna roll the die fate right now, just to see how much more interesting the situation gets. At a certain point, one of the people in the stalls who has had he's had like a sort of like a metal plate like kind of like attached to his neck and face, so it just looks like a metal veil like underneath his eyes and nose. um, he's standing there in the stall, and he begins to get like a little agitated, right? Like he's like, as you're asking these questions, as you're talking, as you're trying to like reach, like trying to like figure out what's going on, you start to notice like a little bit of like recognition almost in him, and he begins to get a little agitated. Vorgan hasn't noticed this yet, and at a certain point, the guy in the stall, he just like swings the stall doors open, and is just like kind of like grunting and growling behind his metal mask, like, and Vorgan is like, "God damn it!" And then I think this guy like just like this creature, this big man, he just like pounds Vorgan in the chest, and Vorgan goes falling down and kind of like has the wind knocked out of him, and then he turns like on you.
Like,
to Kaylin. Where are we headed, Kaylin? Oh, that's right, pantry. Larder.
We were looking for the good stuff since
The good stuff.
Vorgan,
Yeah.
hadn't given us the good wine in the carriage up, so there must be good wine here somewhere.
Indeed.
And the thought being also, remember, I'm here to sort of try and find out more about Freya's, the battle and whatnot. So there's something in the house. I'm guessing going down into trying to get into lower levels.
Yeah. I mean, I think like there is a. I mean, Voris will tell you, because Voris knows the house fairly well, right? There's not like a subterranean area. There might be like a small like like a little pantry area beneath the kitchen. But the hill is situated on, it's actually right on top of cave system. Like there actually isn't much space to build down below, right? Everything is kind of like up top. But nevertheless, there are a couple of people from the village who work in the kitchen, and they'll definitely like kind of, they're not going to say no, like run of the place, right? Voris, if you're with Kaylin, they will just leave. The servants will just like immediately leave the room as soon as you step in, right?
Yeah, I'm there.
You being there means they're not supposed to be there, right? So Kaylin, what do you do? What's your first step?
Well, since I'm with Voris, then I guess I'll say, Voris, so why don't we start off the evening with a good bottle of wine, unlike what Vorgan sent us? Right? And sort of looks at you, smiles.
Yes, I think I can find a good bottle here, and I walk past this bear, and I'm like, "Don't drink from that one," and then go over to the rack and kind of bend down and pull out a bottle. I think it's probably like a dark blue glass bottle. with like a, I think it has like a stopper in the top. And I bring it over to you, and I'm like, I'm sure you've never seen wine in a bottle before. Mostly wine skins.
Why would you think that? When I was being trained at the temple, we had bottles of everything. It was, that's just because I don't particularly care about the wealth of my clothes or appearance doesn't mean I haven't. You really don't know much about me, do you? You don't know where I came from. You don't know what family I'm from. For all you know, I could be nobility.
And I give you like this look, like, yeah, right.
Indeed. I'm going to cut away briefly. Moon Poison, where were you headed?
I'm going to the library.
The library. Yeah, interesting. In the library it's a library study. There's like desks and big comfy chairs, dark lacquered wood everywhere. It's very like old gentleman's club kind of situation, right? Candle chandelier above, a few like lantern sconces, and tall tall cases of books, right? And there's an old man in a wheelchair at a desk, poring over some papers when you walk in. What do you do?
Does he notice I come in?
I don't think so.
Is there like a whiskey cart somewhere in the room?
Sure.
Yeah. I go over and I just grab the carafe or whatever, the crystal carafe of whiskey, and I just start drinking it, or like whatever spirit it is, bourbon, whatever. And then I go up to the man in the wheelchair, and I'm just like, how do you reach the top ones? Are you the librarian?
The man is he's quite old, like really ancient old. Just a few little strands of gray hair. Very, very like just liver spotted, wrinkly liver spotted skin. Wearing kind of like a dusty formal coat and pants, and like in his wheelchair, he looks a little bit like the villain in Big Trouble in Little China, right? Like that, like his like old man form, right? It's like that. And he looks at you and says, "Oh, Belch, you're back. Where have you been all this time?"
I don't know who Belch is, and I don't know who you are, but I've been somewhere else all this time.
Belch, quickly, it's almost time for dinner. We have to get me ready for dinner. Mother will be very, very upset if I'm late. She'll be very, very upset. Quickly, come.
No thanks. I'm good. Do you have magic books in here?
Oh, magic books. Oh, we have so many magic things in this place. Oh, I see her, Belch. I see her taunting me. Always she looks at me, pawing on the other side of the glass. I don't know how to reach her. I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do?
Have you tried opening the window? I don't see anyone out there.
I will reach her someday, Belch. Someday. Now quickly we must go. We mustn't be late for dinner.
And what is he doing? Is he just like sitting there telling me to do something?
I think he wants you to wheel him up to his bedroom.
Okay. What kind of paperwork is he working on, or what is he reading, or?
He's got just like several pieces of parchment with just wild scribbles and scrawls all over it.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to ignore him and like check out the books. I'm just gonna kind of walk away.
Sure. Give me a wisdom roll while you're looking around the library.
Gosh. Could someone who's looking at the sheet remind me what my wisdom is?
Yeah, it's 1.
Okay. I guess that's an 8.
Oh, you broke up. Say it again.
8.
8. What kinds of things are you looking for?
I'm looking for expensive books that I can, like, rare expensive books.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not rare expensive books. I'm looking for like expensive items that I can break, and I'm looking for like useful books on either the history of this place or on magic.
Most of the books on the shelves are histories, entry-level medical texts, poetry books, that kind of thing. You find a single book of interest because it sounds somewhat magical. And the book is called Expeditions. No, I'll change the name of the book. I have the name of the book, but I'm going to change it. New Learnings of Alchemical Processes, Volume 1.
Okay.
It stands out as the only book that seems somewhat magic in nature. It's got lots of symbols on the pages and a lot of talk about like changing lead into gold, right?
Okay.
I'm gonna roll a die of fate just to see about the old man. I got a 1.
Yay!
Hold that thought. Meanwhile, this guy, this big, huge guy with this like metal muffler on his face, right? He just like knocked the wind out of Vorgan. Vorgan is there, like trying to collect himself. But meanwhile, this thing is like turned on you, and it's just like got like a furious look in its eyes. What do you do?
I like kind of I have my staff kind of in front of me, but I've kind of gestured down towards Vorgan, and I'm like, "There's your oppressor. You have him at your mercy. Now, what will you do about it?"
Are you trying to convince him to attack Vorgan?
I mean, it seems like that's what he would want.
Give me a charisma roll.
Okay. Seven.
He turns on Vorgan and he just like lunges for Vorgan. And when he lunges for Vorgan, a shot rings out and his head just explodes. And Vorgan is there, having grabbed his sidearm. And the creature falls down. The man. And he says, How about no more talk of resistance and oppression?
I thought you said you were persuasive.
Nice trick trying to turn him on me. Don't think I didn't overhear that. What are you here for? Why has my brother come back to Dauphin?
I suppose you should ask him that yourself.
He kind of pushes past you in anger out the stable. He leaves you alone. What do you do?
I'm going to see if there's any of these men who are capable of speech.
Indeed. I think there's probably one who, well, there's one that just has sewn shut, and you can cut that open if you want to try to talk to him.
Yeah, I'll do that.
He seems a little scared as you approach, like a jumpy animal almost. And you walk up and you kind of like undo the bindings on his lips, and he just says, he just kind of makes muttering noises. What do you say?
Do you know what I'm saying? Can you understand me?
And he kind of like tentatively nods.
Can you speak?
And you can tell he hasn't used his vocal cords in some time. He's just making kind of like slurry noises.
Hmm. Can I decipher them as like attempts at speech or words?
Yeah, I think he's trying. Yeah. It just sounds like baby gurgling.
Why did you come here? How did you come here? Did he take you?
And I think at that point, his eyes just begin to well up with tears. And he's clearly a little agitated about when you asked him where he came from.
Mm-hmm.
And give me a charisma roll. I want to see how much, I don't know, in case you follow up on this later, like how friendly this person might be.
8.
You get the distinct impression that he wants to communicate with you, but you may have to find, I don't know, you may have to like find, it's unclear if he even has words, right?
Sure.
He seems like he understands that you are just trying to communicate with him generally, and he probably understands like commands from Vorgan, but it might be a situation where you have to actually like take him out of the stable and actually get him to like point things out or whatever, right? Like you may have to learn from him in a more interactive way, right? It's not clear, but he's tentatively, he's not friendly, but I think he trusts you, right?
Okay. I am going to do a ritual, so it'll take me the next in-game hour. So do you want me to tee it up now and you can move on to someone
What's
else?
the ritual going to be?
I'm going to try and use the spirit of, where is it? Speculo to do a reversal, a temporary reversal, where I will give him my vocal cords and I will take his vocal cords for an amount of time so he can speak and I can listen.
Interesting.
And I like, as I am like doing the things of the ritual, I will spend the next hour explaining to him what I hope to find out, so that when he has the ability, assuming this works, he will be able to tell me.
Come back to it. Let's do one more scene with Kaelin and Orvorus, and then we'll take our second break.
I think that Boris has drank quite a bit of the wine. I don't know how much Kaylin has drank. Did you want anything down here in the just wine? Is that all you wanted from?
You asking in character or out?
Out of character.
I was trying to see if there was any indications that there was like an entrance to the caves down here.
Oh right, yeah. He said that there's not. Yeah, I think that Boris has probably gotten a bit more relaxed and has his like arm around you, and maybe we're walking around the grounds.
Before you leave the cellar, you're going to hear sounds, noises coming from the other side of a wall. It sounds like people. It's some kind of voices on the other side of the wall. Hold that thought. We'll take a couple minutes.
Okay. It is like so cold in this house right now. I'm like freezing.
Are you dog sitting or something?
Yeah. And my friends got this house, but it's like an old house, and they're having to like tear out all the walls and put in new walls and stuff. So it's not really insulated. And it feels like it's like 50 degrees in here.
Oh, 50 degrees,
50
huh?
degrees.
Oh gosh. How terrible.
How
It's
awful.
it's -2 outside right now where I'm at.
I had an insane trip back from Michigan where we were stuck on a train. Our car had no power, so there was no heating. And I think it got down to about 25 degrees in the car. And like the gasketed area between the cars, like it was just icicles hanging off of all the areas. And whenever we would go fast, like snow would like blow through broken seals in the gaskets, I'm guessing. But yeah, that train should not have been operating. Like all the doors were frozen shut except for one. It was like it was all kinds of hazards.
Hey. Sorry, crazy dog here. Yeah, I've never been that cold. I've lived in California all my life, so I'm probably a bit spoiled.
Kaylin and Voris, you definitely hear voices, murmuring voices on the other side of the wall. We'll say this is down in the cellar where the wine and things are. So, it's like on the other side of the wall. Like you can hear it. Kaylin, what do you do?
I guess we're probably drinking and talking, and Kalen will hear this and move over to the wall a little bit and put his hand up on the wall. Not that you can feel vibrations through stone, but just sort of getting closer and listening to it. But before he says anything about that, I'll turn to Voris and say, I wanted to apologize. I'm sorry I mouthed off about your family and your brother. There's just, I kind of have to stand up for people that, we've been together for a while, had each other's back, and your brother was just being a bit of an ass. After Moon Poison and to you, and yeah, sorry. I should have.
Oh, you have no idea how much of an ass my brother can be.
Well, I expect we're gonna find out about that, but hopefully we'll be together in this, and have a toast and drink to it. And I think probably while we're drinking, that's when Kaylin will definitely hear whatever the voices are behind the wall, and then look over it and say, "I thought you said there wasn't anything else down here. Do you hear those voices?"
And indeed, Voris, this is not a memory you have. Like you don't know what this is.
Right. What's on the other side of this wall? Do I know?
No. Shouldn't be anything.
Okay.
It doesn't look like a new construction, though, does it? It's not.
No.
I'm gonna try and find like access to whatever area is behind the wall. Like I imagine I'm like going along the wall and probably going out into the hallway and trying to navigate my way around.
So this little whatever's on the other side of this wall of the cellar, it's down below, so you can't get around to like the other side of whatever that is. You can really only check out down in the cellar. But if you give me a wisdom roll, then I'll let you learn something.
Yeah, I'll do that.
This wouldn't be a place where I could use my awareness skill.
Yeah, probably. Yes, if you want to check as well, we'll see what comes up before us.
Yeah, that's.
I got 8 plus 1, 9.
There are the wall in question has if you tap around it, it feels like more hollow or thin than the other three walls.
Yeah, I think I'm. Oh, sorry.
Finish your thought for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say I pick up Vergoris, my fire drake,
Right.
and kind of I was thinking of melting through the wall at the hollow spot, but
being a little drunk, that might sound logical.
Caleb,
oh, we can get through this in no time.
Well, I guess maybe if we have an adequate source of light, I think Caitlin will start looking at the floor to try and see if there's any indication of where people have been more. Dust has been moved aside or scrapes on the floor to indicate that the wall moves.
It does. Yeah, you'll see that. You'll see like a gouge on the floor.
Okay, and then he'll try and look to see what the trigger would be, or if he can push that wall from that spot.
Now that you know that the wall is kind of like a false wall, and because you have awareness, I'll let you'll be aware of the fact that I think there's basically like a loose stone. You can pry that stone out, and that stone actually has what looks to be like some kind of like key mechanism. Like you stick something in there and turn.
So you have to have a key. Voice, you don't happen to have a key for this, do you?
Oh, I lost my keys a long time ago. Let's go see if we can't get some keys from my brother.
Okay. That sounds like this could be interesting. And when we're listening closer to this, does it sound like they're chanting, groaning, just talking? What are the voices doing?
Sounds like whispered voices. Whispering to each other. Probably talking about you.
Because everybody talks about Galen.
It's unclear. It's unclear what they're saying.
Okay, yeah.
Back up to Moon Poison. The old man is crying at a certain point, Moon Poison, while you're going through this, you're flipping through this alchemy book. He just begins like sobbing and weeping like really openly. And he says, "Oh, Belch. Oh, Belch, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident, you see. It was an accident. I do hope you'll forgive me." Moon Poison, how do you respond?
Oh, right. I was muted. Yeah. So, gosh. So he's crying this out, and I'm flipping through the alchemy text, and I guess I go over to him, and I'm just like, what I decided that I'm gonna play along just to try to get some information. What did you do, my friend?
Oh, don't make me say it. Have I not lived with this guilt long enough?
How can you atone without admitting your mistakes?
And he reaches out his like gnarled hand and begins stroking your purple hair. It's like, oh, but you stayed by my side. You stayed by my side even after I did what I did. Oh, ouch.
I am ever so loyal. And you know that. I can help you with this. We'll make it all right.
No. The goblins will never come back. Not after what I did to them. They'll never come back.
What did you do?
Oh. And he looks at you and he just begins like crying. And he says, and then he just like he's just got tears coming down his eyes, and he kind of screws up his face and he says, "How dare you question me, goblin?" And he like backhands you as best he can with his frail arm. Like, it's kind of ineffectual, but if he had some strength, you could tell it would, he would have backhanded you good. Keep your tongue in your mouth until I tell you to loose it. Take me up to get dressed for dinner.
And I kind of like hearing this. I jump up onto his lap and I grab him by the collar of his shirt. I'm saying, "Don't ever touch me like that. Now tell me, what the fuck are you talking about? Or so help me, I will slash your throat right here."
He says, "Unhand me, goblin, or I'll burn you like I did all the rest." And he's trying to like push you off of him.
And yeah, I punch him in the face. Like I just break his fucking I just break his fucking nose.
Nice.
Just like
it breaks easily. It's just a sickly, like, not even a crunch. It's more of just a kind of a brittle snap followed by a squish of blood. Eggshell, indeed, eggshell skull. And he's got blood bleeding out. He says, "Oh, you will pay for this, goblin. You'll pay for this, Pouch. How could you lay hands on your master?" And he's just like wailing at this point. He's like wailing for help, but no one's coming.
"You're no master to me. I am my own master, and you are nothing but a frail, old, disgusting, noble, aristocratic garbage." And I like, and then I take the book and like, and like I piss in the corner of the room and I leave.
All right. Let's talk about this ritual, Osmodeus. So what does it look like, the ritual, as you're talking to him? What preparations are you making?
So I draw a circle on the ground around both of us with if it's dirt here, then I'll do it in the dirt. Otherwise, I'll use my chalk. And I have to kind of make like a yin yang kind of thing to summon Speculo. And I use my mirror. Like I draw it on one side and then I use my mirror to look at it so that I can draw it on the other side in perfect, mirror image.
Symmetry.
Yeah, good symmetry. And then I like produce something stringy, something like vocal cords, like some like leeks or something. And kind of grind them into the ground on one side, and then I position the mirror so that I can see it on the other side, and then I take some more leeks and do the reverse on the other. Like I leave them whole and intact on the other side. And I have him, I position him to sit on the side where there are the whole undestroyed leeks, and then I sit on the side with the destroyed leeks. And then right in the middle between us, I set my hourglass And and then I question him for the entire hour, with him being perfectly silent. And then when I turn it over for the next hour, my intended effect is for the next hour, he will be able to speak, and I will be perfectly silent for the next hour, and then the ritual will be complete. We'll
You can ask
go back to normal.
Yeah, just ask them some questions. Like, what would you have asked while you were able to speak, I guess?
Right. So I would want to know, like, where he was from, like, why he ended up here, if he knows, what kinds of things he has been subjected to, what he has seen around here. If I can get him out of here, what he will do. If he knows any of these other people and where they belong.
Good. He says, I came from here. I came from this place. I was born underground like all the rest. And there I stayed until Master Vorgan came to collect me. I want very much to leave this place. But how can I? Where would I go? There is nothing but here for all of us. He looks at the others in the stable stalls. He says, I remember some of them when we were born, when we were young. I know nothing of their thoughts or concerns now. Anything else you want to know from him?
So, I mean, if I can get him out of here, what will he do, or where would he? What would he want to do? I guess he doesn't know.
He says, I would be very, very frightened of encountering Master Vorgan. I know that wherever I go, he will find me. And I don't know what lies beyond Dauphin. I would be lost. I cut Kalen and Horace. Whispering voices. There's a mechanism to unlock what must be. It must be some sort of like door, some false wall door. Right?
Yes, and we need a key, right? So I think our plan is to go and try and get a key from one of my brother's quarters. Okay. But I think what what we do before we leave here is we grab a couple more bottles of wine and we finish this one off. So I go to the barrel of the piss wine and I fill up this fancy bottle with this piss wine.
Just totally passive aggressive.
He'll think this is perfectly fine wine. I wonder how much of it he'll drink.
Well, we'll have to take
And-
some more good stuff for us.
And yeah, I think we'll grab a couple other bottles and try and find Eris's quarters, or maybe Vorgan's quarters.
Okay.
And maybe we've had enough that we're sort of like shoulder hanging off of each other's shoulders. Big lump.
Right.
And Kaylin is saying, "You're really not so bad when you drink. You sort of soften up. I like you."
I think as you guys come up, you might actually hear, you'll hear your grandfather Melfin loudly wailing down the hall, like from the library. You'll hear him wailing. That's bound to attract someone's attention. I'm going to roll the die of fate. A 3. And you'll hear his like loud wailing, and this is like after, Moon Poison having left. Moon Poison, where do you go? You hear the old man behind you making all this noise and racket. Like, where do you head, Moon Poison?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think at this point I would kind of be heading in the direction toward the larder, to be honest, to also get some more alcohol, because I've polished off the whiskey, and I'm just like get some more alcohol and like try to like just like cool off because of what just happened. I'm just like,
I think there's like a central hall. It's like the receiving area, kind of like right as you come in from the courtyard. And I think maybe all three of you meet up in that area, right? In your different ways. You're all kind of like wander and stumble into each other. This main sort of like grand receiving hall, it's got a big swooping vaulted ceiling. And there are massive oil paintings of various Malabroges that line the walls, right? Going back generations, right? There's even like newer, fresher looking paintings of one of Aris, for example, in the hall as well. And you're all there.
Is there one of Vorus or Vorgan?
There is not one of Vorgan. There's not one of you. There's not one of Tethys. There is one of Aris, though.
I make this comment like, oh, they painted him skinnier than he actually is. He doesn't have a double chin.
And they may have. He's a little punchy, so it's a good chance. Yeah, he's a little punchy. Kaylin, because of awareness, you'll be aware of this interesting feature of these numerous paintings, and there are about, I'd say, like, I don't know, at least like 24, right? Various Malabroges. None of them are women. They're all men. What, do you remark on that, or do you just keep that in your pocket?
Well, since he's been drinking, I don't think he will keep it in his pocket. So the question will just sort of come out. What do you do with all the women in your family? There are no portraits of them. Or is that a different hall?
And a young man comes out into the receiving area. Vorus, you don't recognize him, but he's dressed in, he's got like a, I think he's wearing like a very fine silk shirt, and soft slippers, and like a little sash tied to his waist. He looks like almost like an exotic like prince from another land or something, right? Like, but he definitely looks like you. Like he has like your hair coloring and the same eyes, right? But he just looks a little younger, a lot more slight. than you. But you can't actually recognize, you don't know who he is, except just this vague familiarity. And he says, he smiles and says, "Brother, I heard you were back." And he like comes up to you and he just like gives you a big hug.
And I turn to Kid. I'm like, "Oh God, not another one."
He says, "Grandfather is making such a fuss, such a noise. I came to investigate. He's just going on and on about," and then he sees you, Moon Poison, "about a goblin." Huh.
Jason, do I know this brother?
No.
Right. And I kind of back up off of him and say, "Are you from one of the other estates? Because..."
He says, "Don't be silly. I'm Tethys. I'm your brother Tethys." And then he like reaches up and gives you a kiss on the cheek. "I'm so happy to see you."
Oh, don't do that again.
I'm a little disappointed that you don't recognize me.
Is my father still alive here?
No. He died some years ago. Not spontaneous combustion, but
and I'm like, well, based on your behavior right now, maybe I suppressed the memory.
he's like, And then he kind of like goes to Moon Poison and says, "For once, grandfather's ravings all make sense. I never thought in all my days I would ever see an actual live goblin, but here you are."
I'm not a goblin. I'll have you know.
He's like, "Silence, goblin."
Fuck you!
"I shall have to tell my brother Eris that you're back-talking, goblin. You won't like that, I assure you."
I don't care. I don't belong to you. I'm not something that you own. I am not even from here.
And he just like walks up and like he just like slaps you. Just he's like,
that's when I walk up and push him back, and I'm like, "Don't touch my goblin."
he's like, "Well, I'm very sorry, brother. But you need to keep it under control."
And I backhand him. And I'm like, "You need to watch who you cross around here."
And he kind of puts his hand on his cheek and he's down on the ground. And he's like, and he just begins like kind of softly crying. And then
ugh, gross. And I actually like push him over with my foot. Let's go find Eris's quarters already. Had enough of this.
And you just leave Tethys there on the floor. Tethys, who you don't recognize as
I
Tethys, crying on the floor.
I think I've probably experienced like distant relatives trying to come in closer to the family before, and I think that's what I think that is.
And then he kind of screams at you. He's like, "What would mother say if she knew you were treating me like this?"
Oh, don't talk to me about mother.
"She'd be turning over in her grave."
Evidently for some other man.
"You weren't even there when she died." And then he like screams. "We all were there, nursing her back to health, trying to at least." And he stands up and skulks off.
And I turn to the others and I'm like, "I honestly have no idea who that is." But what a pain in the ass.
No kidding. Gosh.
I think Kaylin will pour you another glass of wine from the good bottle.
Oh, can I have some of that?
Sure. We brought another glass. Actually, I think we probably have 2 extras. So Before you.
Boris doesn't recognize Tethys. Tethys recognizes him, seems to. You have probably gotten as close as anyone of investigating what's going on here. What do you think is going on here? Osmodeus, what do you think?
Sorry?
Oh, just what do you think about what's going on here? Anything?
About what's going on here with these servants or slaves or whatever they are. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel great about it. It's pretty messed up. I definitely want to like get these people out of here. Like, it's not right with what's happening to them. Put a stop to this breeding program that they have going on under the ground, but it's gonna take some doing. And I don't know what this guy wants now. If he wants to stay here, or if he's gonna try and follow me. If he's gonna try and follow me, I'm gonna try and smuggle him away somewhere where he can't be found. But I don't know, what is he doing?
I think he will just stay in the stall because he doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah, and that might be the safest place for him, so he doesn't, get himself into trouble for now. But I'll definitely be coming back if I can.
And Moon Poison, you're aware of like all this, like this strange behavior of this old man and the stories, and Tethys not recognizing, or Voris not recognizing his brother Tethys, all that business. What is your thinking of what's going on?
Like, I feel like, and like, did I notice the paintings as well, or was that
Kaylin? I think once Kaylin like made his like, hey, what happened to all the women? You'll see there
right.
are no women.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm kind of disgusted just in general by the way I've been fucking treated. Like, I'm used to being treated, kind of like shittily in a certain way, like, but like not this shittily. It's mostly like people ignoring me instead of or kind of, occasional slurs. But this is outright fucking like terrifyingly awful treatment. And I'm looking at great places to start a fucking fire. And I go up to Voris and I'm just like, and I'm just like, I might kill your family. Just letting you know. Do you want to help me?
Oh, kill my family? That would be great.
Okay. All right. 'Cause these fuckers gotta burn.
I've already killed a couple.
I think everyone calls me. Do you know why everybody keeps calling me a goblin?
And I think I point to maybe some of the like furnishings or whatever, and point out the details of like goblins in like engravings and like holding things up and
little statues of goblin end tables.
Right.
Whatever, right. Yeah. Holding
right.
glass.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So an old man said that he burned all of the goblins? Do you know anything about that?
Do I know anything about that? Like, that's basically the family history, right? Is that the goblins tried
to
they tried to revolt, and they're basically exiled or killed.
Yeah, it's a little unclear. It's a little fuzzy, actually. But they did try to revolt. Maybe because some kind of violence was done to them. Maybe it was the fire or whatever.
Right.
That is supposed to have happened a long, long, long time ago. FYI.
Yeah, and Grandpa's clearly not like 400 years old.
Right.
Or
He's
is
old, but
he?
yeah.
No, yeah.
Do the goblins that we see in the images look like gnomes?
They look like moon poison, yeah. I personally like the idea of dumpster gnomes just calling themselves gnomes.
I also like that idea.
They are, in fact, goblins.
We're gnomes. We're not goblins. We're just dumpster gnomes. You guys are going to Eris's quarters to get to try to find keys, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and probably to snoop. And probably also to snoop.
Yeah, indeed. I think like his quarters it's actually like a bank of rooms that makes up like a small dining room, his personal study, and all.
Oh, we were actually going to Vorgan's quarters. I'm sorry.
Oh, Vorgan's. Oh, okay. Well, Vorgan's are different.
Yeah.
Vorgan's quarters are debating whether I want to just stop here. Because I don't want to get right into that yet. So instead, I think what I want to do is just go around the table and find out what you're each going to be doing from this point forward. I know that Kaelin and Voris are going to go find keys. That's easy. Going to Vorgan's quarters. Asmodeus, where will you head?
I'll be coming back to the house.
Okay. And it's probably like around 2 or 3 in the afternoon at this point. And Moon Poison, what will you be doing?
I'm gonna kind of try and find Asmodeus and try to, from one Belet Oskian to another, try and suss out what the fuck is going on and like compare notes, because like we're both clearly like I could tell that he wasn't happy with the way that they were treating the man horse. So yeah, I want to find Asmodeus because he seems more interested in the things that I'm interested in than Voris does. So yeah.
Good. We'll just leave it there then. Because I don't want to. I have a cliffhanger I could leave it on, but I want to keep. I think it would reveal too much of the mystery, so I'm not going to. I want to maintain the befuddlement of the mystery right now. Good. All right. So let's do your XP reward for the end of this session. Not a super heavy fighty or treasure session, but you each still got 435. And then if you hit a flag, go ahead and let me know what that is. Or if you hit a flag, if you believe you hit a flag, take 10% of the difference between your current level and what you need.
So what was the, you said 435?
You're getting 435 from me. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm pretty sure that I hit Moon Poison's flag because it's super easy.
Yeah, I'm great at that.
I may have hit.
Why do you all have like such weird XPs? Like Asmodeus, why is yours 1024 over 10,000? It doesn't make any sense.
That's how much I have.
You have 1,024 XP.
And I need 10,000 to level up.
Oh, I probably reset mine to 0. I don't think you're supposed to reset it to 0.
You're not supposed to reset it to 0. You just
Yeah.
Oh, well then.
So you're saying it's 1,024 plus whatever you needed for your previous level. Okay. Yeah, it's just a running number. It just keeps going.
Gotcha.
Voris hit my flag.
Out of 1.
Voris, you hit my flag when I was after my dance.
Yeah. Okay.
When you said that you didn't think I had any magic.
right?
And what is it you do?
That's two.
And Osmodeus totally hit the scheme, participate in a weird
Yes,
wild
yeah,
scheme.
I picked up on that one.
Yeah.
That one was pretty obvious in the Golden Maiden.
Yeah, that was great.
Good. Yeah, that was a fun scene. Okay, so basically, you're just going to look at like whatever your difference is from XP from the previous level to the current level, and then you get 10% of that. So, in addition, whenever you hit a flag.
Okay.
So it looks like you needed. So for example, Osmodeus, you get 400 XP for hitting a flag because the difference is 4,000.
Right.
So if you hit 2 flags, you get twice that?
No, you can only hit 1 flag.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okie doke. Does anybody have any questions about how much XP they're entitled to?
435.
All right. This is good. I know what's going on, and so it's a. I like the way it's unfurling. You guys are going to. I think it's going to blow your mind when you finally start to put it all together. Because you're not even close to putting it all together, so that's good. It is a legit mystery. It is a wizard seclusium. That's a huge clue, but it is probably one of the most like bizarre and ornate mysteries I've ever made in a game. So I'm hoping it holds up. I hope it holds up, but as you guys unfurl it, I think it will hold up. But yeah, it's a pretty weird situation going on at Dauphin. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
You haven't even like scratched the surface of weirdness yet. So
Whoop whoop.
yeah, and I think you're going to like how it incorporates all of your individual stories, right? Like Frey and Freya is a big fucking deal, like as far as what's happening right now. There are echoes from session 1 that you'll start to pick up on. There are I was about to say their name. The wizard's work is very important, right? Like, and what he was working with Osmodeus on. It all is going to come together, but you guys have to just start pulling at the right strings to make it happen. So, and clearly we're seeing a lot of the dumpster gnome history already. So,
yep.
So I hope you like it. I think you will. I want to just tell you all. I just want to tell you what's going on. But like, I can't just like tell you what's going on. I totally want to tell you what's going on, but I can't. I want you to discover it and play. So I'm not gonna meta it out for you guys. I want you to discover it and play. It's very interesting. I think you're gonna love it. So
I'm excited.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you guys next week.